Welcome. This is Shelley. I will put my video on and say hi real quick, and then I'm going to turn it off so that it's not taking up camera space or space on the desktop. But I appreciate you taking time out of your busy day. If you're like all of us around here, we're getting bombarded with updates and things to read and trying to stay current. So hopefully we have sifted through some of that information and can give you a little bit of guidance about what we know and even some guidance about what we currently don't know. So feel free to chat in with questions. Deanna, I think you're going to be able to put up the PDF that we've got a chart comparing the two SBA loans. It's a lot of data when I put it on the screen, so don't freak out in a little bit. We will get you the PDF, and you can also have the slide deck as well. So I am going to turn off my camera. I think I have muted all of the things on my office that can ding and chirp, so hopefully we won't have too much of an interruption. So lots of unknowns with this monster. It's definitely something that we've never experienced before. What I want to touch on today is just give you a couple of quick pointers on some hopefully useful guidance. Talk mostly about the two SBA options to get some funds into your bank account sooner rather than later. And then if people have questions, we can get into the extended family medical leave or the sick leave. But I don't think that is as much top of the mind as the SBA options. So again, feel free to chat or drop in a question. Okay. So what are some of the just key things that you might be able to do now to help with this overall situation? If you are using QuickBooks Online or Xero, where we are connected to your account, you will notice that we have added an expense line for COVID-19 activity. It's not required that you track things, although if you end up getting one of, especially if you get the payroll loan, there is going to be some tracking. But this is just for extra cost. You know, if you needed more equipment to be able to go remote or other things like that, if you added in additional subscriptions to virtual tools like a Zoom, if you paid for a Zoom account, or if you're moving your team to Slack or something like that. So it's just an opportunity for comparison purposes down the road to be able to look at what were some of those unexpected and hopefully expenses that we wouldn't have to, that would reoccur in the future. Also, you know, be wary of making snap decisions. We are here, we are available to just listen, talk through, talk about pros and cons, talk about worst case scenario. Sometimes just talking about the worst case scenario can help alleviate some of that fear and anxiety. Talk with your vendors and your lenders. Cash is critical right now. You want to hold on to what cash you have. You want to be looking at how long that cash is going to last. I didn't put that in the slide, but if you want some assistance with how to track and how to project your cash flow or your cash burn rate, we'll be glad to do that. So just let us know. But talk to those vendors and those lenders, especially if you have a lender situation. They have been told to ease up on things. Now, if you have a line of credit and there's interest being paid on that line of credit, they cannot defer the interest on the line of credit. So you'll need to make arrangements to be able to continue paying your interest on your line of credit. But as far as required pay downs, that has been deferred, and other installment type loans, your lenders have the mechanisms to have some of those payments deferred. But be proactive, talk to them. And your bankers right now, they are swamped. They're trying to figure out this new program. Sorry, we've got a fire truck going by. The bankers are working hard to figure out what's this paperwork going to look like and trying to get their documents together. So, sorry. Usually it's a benefit living closer, working close to the fire station, but every once in a while it drowns us out. So be kind to your bankers this week and next week. They are swamped. Nobody wants to do it if they don't have to, but consider furloughing employees if that is a way to manage your cash flow. There's some enhanced unemployment benefits for them. My understanding on furlough is you give them a date that you plan to call them back, which we think we would recommend the end of April for that date due to the timing of the payroll protection loan that I'm going to talk about. And sorry, I kind of lost my train of thought there on the furlough piece, but you're better furloughing them gives them that specific date to be called back. Now, obviously, you know, there's a risk there if you end up having to send someone to unemployment, but that would be a way to minimize your cash outflow as a business owner and to maximize cash in their pocket in the meantime until this payroll protection money starts flowing back in. Take a really hard look at your spending. Only buy things that can turn around and be used to produce income. Defer as many purchases as you can. And also, it's a good time if you've got a company credit card and you've had a lot of recurring membership type dues and things like that that have gotten loaded on there, and over time you kind of forget. Call up your credit card company and ask for a new company credit card and close down the old one. It'll force you to make decisions on those reoccurring monthly bills and make sure that it is something that you want to continue to pay. If folks owe you, if you have clients that owe you funds, stay in touch with them. Try to get something. It's better to get something on a regular basis than to just keep waiting and waiting, getting nothing in the meantime. If you can stay in touch with them and get something a little bit on a more frequent basis, it's going to work out better in the long run. It's a great time to really analyze your business, look at your offerings, if we need to pivot, if you're able to look at both the good and the bad of this scenario, it'll help ease some of the stress, and it may even help you think through some potential opportunities to do things different. Brainstorm with us. You know, we've had some tools to work remote and to work more virtual. We did not have 100% of those things in place, and we are flying this airplane as we build it. So we can help you talk about what works, what doesn't, and how to pivot through that. And another thing to kind of file in the back of your brain or to add to your tickler list, you know, remember where the pain points are right now. And when we get through this, then it's going to be a good time to analyze cash flow again and make some moves and take some steps and change some things to be better positioned to weather an event like this in the future. Hopefully we won't ever face another crisis like this, but if you can be prepared a little bit better for the next round, it'll give you some peace of mind. Okay. All right, let's dig into the SBA loan piece of it. And there are two parts to this SBA loan. There are two different types of loans. The majority of the fellow CPAs that I chat with on a regular basis, we are all of the opinion that you could apply for both of them. There was an email that came out yesterday or today from a fairly major bank that said you could not. None of us had heard that yet. So this is why we have been referring to this as 2020 tax code roulette, because every day we are learning something different and having to forget something that we learned the day before because it's changed. So it's a very fluid situation, but we will continue to get clarity since this was signed last week into law. Okay, now we're coming up on the document that is going to be really hard to read, and we will get you the PDF so that you've got something to look at and it's not quite so fuzzy. So our attempt here was to lay out the two SBA loan options. The one on the left is what's going to be referred to as the Paycheck Protection Program, PPP, primarily for payroll cost. On the right-hand side, we have the one that's been out a little bit longer, the Economic Disaster Loan Program. This is geared to cover your working capital and other costs. The Economic Disaster Loan Program is available now. They have streamlined the forms from what they had on the SBA website a week or so ago. The Payroll Protection Plan or program is being built as we speak by the local banks. The biggest, I shouldn't say the biggest difference, but one of the key differences is the loan forgiveness piece. The payroll protection does have an element of loan forgiveness, where the disaster loan program does not have that same loan forgiveness component. Eligibility is fairly similar. Businesses, not-for-profits, sole proprietors or independent contractors can also apply for these. The loan terms vary, and the loan terms are going to be determined by the lender, whether that's, well, by the SBA, even though the bank's handling the payroll protection, it's ultimately SBA. So I don't think you're going to have the choice of saying, I want to defer this or I want to stretch this out over 10 years or 30 years. I think based on the amount, they're probably going to tell you what your repayment terms are. The interest rates vary slightly. The paycheck, you have a 4% interest rate. And on the economic disaster, it's a 3.75, and it's lower for not-for-profits. How do you get these? This is the big question that everyone has. The payroll protection is going to come from the local banks. They are scrambling. They are trying to learn what documentation they need. If you've ever gone through an SBA process in the past, it was cumbersome. Stacks and stacks of papers, documentations, all kinds of things. This is being extremely, extremely streamlined. Do not let your past experience scare you away from pursuing one of these loans. The payroll protection program is going to be very streamlined, probably a couple of pages at most for the application process. The economic disaster loan program, you are going to apply directly on the SBA website. If you're not sure how to get that, or you want to make sure that you are on a safe website, our almondjohnson.com website has a big red COVID section across the top, and there are links there to the SBA piece. They have changed that application for the economic disaster since last week. The first 2 pages are pretty streamlined. I have not had a chance to go beyond that yet, but it is less burdensome than if you were looking at that a week or 2 ago. That is available now. The payroll protection, The banks are supposed to have it available by the 11th. So that one we're going to sit tight on a little bit, and I'll talk a little bit about the comparisons of the two. I do have some competing information here on the deferral once you actually get the loan. I do believe on the payroll protection it's a 6-month deferral for the portion that's not forgiven. And economic disaster, I believe it may be up to a year for that deferral. I've already talked a little bit about on the payroll protection that it's much less paperwork. Your business had to have been in operation by February 15th of 2020. Excuse me, getting a little dry there. And you had to have experienced a financial hardship, either loss of sales or other such hardship related to this crisis. The payroll protection is going to be based on what you have paid your employees or your self-contractor or your independent contractors, or if you're self-employed, what you have been able to draw from the company. There's no personal guarantee or collateral required. It's simply a good faith certification of the need and the use of these funds. The economic disaster has a little bit more information that's going to be needed because it's going to be based more on your monthly expenses. So be prepared to gather a little bit more documentation, and there is a self-certification under penalty of perjury. One of the biggest differences between the two, on the payroll protection program, you're not going to get anything until it gets approved, and then the cash hits your bank. On the economic disaster loan program, once you have applied, then after 3 days, you're eligible to go in and request a $10,000 upfront distribution. If you're in dire need of cash, that's going to be the quickest cash. So going on to the loan amounts, your payroll protection program, it's based on your average payroll cost and is geared to cover 2.5 months of your average payroll cost. And we've got a little example that we will walk through. I don't think most of our clients are going to have a problem with the $10 million cap. There is a $2 million cap on the disaster loan. And again, that's more, the loan amount is going to be more based on formulas that SBA uses to determine what you're eligible for. So it's a little bit harder at this point to say exactly what your SBA economic disaster loan would be. I can tell you with good information what your payroll loan would be. What about the loan forgiveness? This is key, and this is what's going to help the economy recover as we head towards the last half of the year. Once you receive the payroll loan, for the next 8 weeks, the money that you spend on gross payroll, your mortgage or your rent, and your utilities, and then payroll related benefits. So if your company's paying a portion of the health insurance, or you have a retirement account match, what you spend for the next 8 weeks is eligible for the debt forgiveness on the payroll loan. The economic disaster loan does not have that same type of forgiveness. However, if you apply for the $10,000, there is loan forgiveness potential with the $10,000. Our understanding is that if you get the $10,000 and you also get the payroll protection loan, that you're not going to get 10 and the payroll forgiven, that those would coordinate so that you're not getting double forgiveness on that. So what does that, oh, I'm sorry, hit the wrong button. Let's go back for a minute and look at that example. Wanted to make sure everybody was still awake and hadn't totally zoned out. So if your monthly payroll runs about $30,000 and you had some other pay in there for vacation and sick, if you pay health insurance and retirement benefits for a total average monthly cost of $35,000 for payroll, that would be multiplied by 250% or 2.5 times. So in that case, your loan amount would be about $87,500. And then how is the forgiveness calculated? So the forgiveness base is a little bit wider than what the loan is calculated on. The loan's only calculated on payroll and related cost. The forgiveness, you get to add in the other items that we mentioned up here, the mortgage or your rent and utilities, plus the payroll for the 8 weeks from the time you get the loan. There is a ratio related to your full-time equivalent employees. So here's where you run the risk. If you furlough employees, if you bring them back, and we're looking at that loan forgiveness, if not everybody comes back, you're not able to fill all of those spots, or business doesn't pick up enough to justify all of those spots, then, excuse me, there may be a ratio where you end up getting a portion of that debt forgiveness. Let's see, I think most of this we have talked about. There is, you know, just differences on how the two loans are calculated. And again, on this payroll protection program, we are waiting on the banks. It's going to take a few days for them to sort this out and have this ready to go. I would recommend that you keep a very close eye or keep in touch without flooding their inbox too much, your local bank who you use for your banking operations. If for some reason that doesn't work out, we are in touch with local banks here that are open to working with new customers as well. If you think the economic disaster loan program may be the way to go for you, then that can be applied for now. Okay, let's go on because I know there's a lot of information here and lots of little details. I was just kind of looking, I'm not seeing any questions in the chat. So I mentioned this a little bit, there is no double dipping on these various programs. So if we're counting payroll under the payroll protection, we can't turn around and also count payroll for our eligibility on the disaster loan. And your record keeping is going to be vital to getting the best benefits. So what to do now? Because I know everybody's anxious and wants to get the ball rolling on some of these things. Be thinking about which loan. Have that conversation with us. We're happy to talk you through that. Deanna's available to schedule time on our calendars, so shoot her an email, give us a phone call. We'll get you scheduled on the calendar. We can also determine really close what that maximum amount is going to be on the payroll protection piece. So those are things that we can be doing now. The other thing that you can be doing now is if you want to apply for the economic disaster. That's available through the SBA website. You can get there through our website. In the near future, you're going to need to make sure that you've got the tools in place to track this type of activity going forward, because once you get that payroll protection loan, it hits your bank account, that 8-week meter starts for that reimbursement period, and we want to be able to track that very closely. And then later at the end of that 8-week time frame, we'll want to be able to calculate what your maximum deferral is. So those are important things that you can do now. So we have a question about the length of time that businesses can apply. So Yes, my understanding is that I believe the economic disaster loan, that is available to apply between now and end of the year. The economic disaster loan, that's the one that has the $10,000 potential emergency grant up front. I think at a minimum on the payroll loan, the time frame is going to be, once the banks get this organized, through June 30th. So there are some time frames around this. I think it's going to be very interesting to see how the banks are able to scramble and kind of get this rat through the python, because there's a lot of material and information and moving parts. So we may see those dates change. And my understanding was the amount made available for this whole package on the SBA loans was based on what they thought 8 weeks of average small business payroll needs would be. So hopefully there's enough to go around. So thank you for the question, Heidi, and hopefully that covered your question. All right, what else? Trying to remember what I've got. For the payroll piece, you can get prepared now. Payroll records, if we have access to how your payroll is processed, especially those of you that are on Gusto or using one of the other means where we've got shared access, we can help pull that together. You're primarily going to need 12 months worth of payroll records, and we think that that is going to actually be running from March 1st of 2019 through end of February 2020. Makes it a little more cumbersome because it's not matching up to end of quarter or end of calendar year, but we can certainly help you pull that information together. But it is based on a 12-month look back. If you're brand new in business, it's based on a shorter time frame. So if we need to work through those dates, we can. You're going to want, on those payroll records, obviously we need the total for that time frame, but you're also going to need to have it totaled by employee, because if someone was over 100,000, then that needs to come off of the calculation. And we also need it broken down by owners, shareholders versus employees. Quarterly payroll tax filings are going to be needed as well to support what you're requesting. So I would go ahead and make sure that those quarterly payroll reports, 941, state unemployment for all of 2019 and possibly the first quarter of 2020, if this drags on a little bit, have that available. Again, if you're working with us on payroll, we've got that at our fingertips, so don't spin your wheels on those type of things. And then if your company pays for some health insurance or retirement match, that information, because that gets funneled into the calculation. Miscellaneous 1099s to subcontractors. So if you have someone, for example, here in the firm, we occasionally for public relations type things, we'll hire out for some of that work instead of having somebody on staff do it. There is confusion on what gets included in this calculation. So if you have, so you have a virtual assistant, or you have someone who is doing something for your business that you pay them on a 1099. We think that you're going to be able to include that into the calculation, but it's just not clear. The documentation was not black and white on that piece of it. So we will certainly continue. I think in the days to come, we're going to see a lot of detail on the regulations start to come out and more frequently asked questions. So we'll start to get some clarity around those type of things. All right. If you're going to go for the economic disaster loan, you're going to need a little bit more information. It would be helpful for you to have this in front of you. I would not go out and make copies and have scads of reams of paper available, but I would just have that information in front of you as you're going through and applying for that. I do believe that they continue to ask for transcripts on your tax returns. Again, this is on the economic disaster that you're applying straight through the SBA, not the one that you're going to be working with your local banker. These are not cumbersome forms. When I was on the SBA website a week ago, before they made it an even more condensed version, they simply had the forms in there that you could print and sign. They can be uploaded, they can be faxed to them. It's going to be helpful if you have your financial statements or your tax returns in front of you. Be prepared to fill out a personal financial statement. This is the one, this is for anybody that owns 20% or more of the business. They want to know, you know, what do you personally have in the bank account? What do you have in investment accounts? What's the value of the real estate that you own personally? And likewise, what debts and things do you have on that? If you've got insurance with cash surrender values, you may need to know that type of information. So those are good things to have ready. And there's also, at least before they shortened it, I'm assuming they would still want to have this, a list of liabilities. They have a specific form for it, SBA 2202. Don't let the forms freak you out. It's not cumbersome. They simply want to know what obligations does your business have already. So if you have leases for equipment, you're going to need to know information about those leases. When did it start? What was the original amount? How much do you pay every month? What's the current balance? Same thing if you have installment through your bank for equipment or vehicles, or if you have a line of credit, they're going to want to know the basics on those type of liabilities. And then of course, you know, they may want some additional information, and there's a timeline for you to respond to that. And again, there is a button on our website, big red COVID button. Click on that. There's updated information. It gets updated every couple of days. And there is a link to the SBA so that you can know that you're getting on the right spot. There are scams everywhere right now. Be super, super careful that you're not going after stupid money that has really high fees and really high rates, or getting on a website and giving away information. Stimulus checks are not out yet. You do not have to do anything to get your stimulus checks, so do not fall for that type of scam either. If you're not sure, ask us. We will be glad to vet it out and give our opinion. All right, I'll get off my soapbox on scams and move forward. A couple things that I don't have answers for you yet. If you have multiple entities, I am not sure if each entity is going to need to apply or how that would work. And likewise, if you have rental real estate and either have only a few employees or no employees, again, not exactly sure how that's going to work. Those are things that I'm going to continue to keep my ear to the ground and try to find out what is going on. So I appreciate your time, and we are available. We have told all of the individual returns that are kind of pending in process that business owner clients are priority right now to help you work through this and figure out ways to be able to either keep your doors open or reopen your doors as this thing settles. It sounds like we're going to need to batten down the hatches for probably another month. So we are available for you. Some of us are working remote. Some of us are still coming into the office. We've installed a Dropbox, a physical Dropbox outside for documents that by chance would need to be dropped off. But most everything that we need to help you with for this process, we can do in a virtual format. So please know that we're here. Take advantage of us as a resource. All right, I'm going to look and see if there's any other questions. We will send out the presentation slides, and we'll make this recording available. So if you can't sleep some night and you need to listen to my soothing monotone voice again, that'll be available. and we'll have that chart of the comparison as well. Like I said, it's fluid. It's 2020 tax code roulette. What I tell you one day may be different the next day, but we are here and we want to help. So please take care of yourselves, stay well, go wash your hands. Goodbye.